We've been breaking down all the big and little free agent moves that matter for fantasy football. But if you've been through this before, there are some players that didn't go anywhere, didn't sign anything, and they're secretly going to be winning for fantasy football. So let's break down those players. Why not start in Jacksonville, where there's a whole bunch of targets that are being vacated because, man, they're clearing house there. But one guy who stayed is the tight end, Brenton Strange. I guess he's the next Evan Engram. Is that the way we see it?
I mean, why not? Look, he was productive down the stretch last year with Evan Engram out. He was really one of the best fantasy tight ends. Now I know it's going to be a slightly different offense with Doug Peterson gone, but yeah, there's a lot of targets up for grabs here. Christian Kirk is gone. Evan Engram is gone. I know they brought in Diami Brown, who I do like, but look, Brenton Strange, again, he's a good pass catching tight end. He's a good player. And now the opportunity is there, and we've seen him be successful anytime Evan Engram has been out. So I think Brenton Strange has to be a huge winner for fantasy here, and he's still a guy that's a complete afterthought in fantasy drafts at the tight end position. But kind of like last year where he was a great waiver wire pickup down the stretch, I think he's going to be a great waiver wire pickup or a last round pick all year this year.
Well, as you said, I mean, we talked about Brenton Strange a lot during the middle of last season. Guy with high draft capital, very athletic tight end from Penn State, right? Has a pretty good history of producing NFL caliber tight ends. Everything's in place here. And again, the target share is always what is so important. Obviously, Brian Thomas Jr. is going to be clearly the alpha there, no matter what else they do from here on out, draft free agency, whatever, right? They've already said this offense will revolve around Brian Thomas, which is smart. But we will definitely see Strange get involved, and a lot of people will be a little skeptical on draft day. And you've got to pay attention. I don't even know where Evan Engram is going to wind up, but I think I would prefer Strange over Engram at this point. Now, receivers can definitely upgrade, not just because of vacated targets, but because the quarterback position has been improved, and that's what has happened in Vegas. Geno Smith surprisingly moved to the Raiders, reunited with Pete Carroll. How big of a win is this for Jacoby?
This has to be huge. He's going from Jimmy G and Aiden O'Connell or whoever the quarterbacks, Gardner Minshew, whoever the quarterback, Jimmy G, that was like 2 years ago. Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell to Geno Smith. And we just saw JSN, who plays a very similar role to Jacoby Myers, have a monster year with Geno Smith. Like, I'm sure the Raiders will do something in the draft at wide receiver, but that doesn't guarantee like instantly that whoever they draft as a rookie is going to just come in and command a bunch of targets. We've seen plenty of rookie wide receivers come into the NFL and not be ready quite right away. Jacoby Myers is a good receiver. The last 2 years, I feel like he's been one of the best values in all of fantasy drafts, and I feel like he's going to be that way again this year.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. It seems pretty clear right now that the number two wide receiver for the Raiders is going to be a rookie. And look, even if they do spend a first round pick or get one of those first wide receivers, it's not a great wide receiver class, right? I don't know that we're going to have a Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas type of receiver coming in, but even so, it will take time. Jacoby Myers is probably going to be the number one productive receiver for fantasy purposes. And look, Geno Smith continues to be slept on, a little underrated in real life. So this has got to be a win for Jacoby. Now, we're talking secret winners. There's teams sometimes that do pretty much nothing, and yet that's a good thing for the receivers that are in place. How about the Packers, who did not get DK Metcalf, who did not really do anything significant on offense? And got to remember that Christian Watson unlikely to play at all this year. So, I mean, this seems good for all of their wideouts.
It does. It's got to be good for all of them. Jaden Reed, Romeo Dobbs, and Dontavian Wicks. At the same time, we know how this goes. They're going to be volatile. They're going to be frustrating. But at least we have a pretty clear picture, right? All the talk, Josh Jacobs, everybody, they got to get a wide receiver one. Well, they didn't, and there really isn't a wide receiver one out there anymore. So, yeah, this is good for the Packers wide receivers. I kind of think they're being more fairly valued this year than last year, where they were probably a little overvalued, especially Jaden Reed. So, yeah, it looks like we're going to go into next season, unless they do something crazy in the draft, with Jaden Reed, Romeo Dobbs, and Dontavian Wicks as the three, albeit frustrating, Packers wide receivers.
Yeah, and we're looking for kind of a bounce back from Jordan Love. Definitely let down in terms of expectations because they went sky high. And I mean, not just in fantasy, but also in reality. But like you said, with Jaden Reed, coming into his rookie season, really wasn't that talked about. But after we chatted with Matt Harmon about the receiver rookie prospects, I really started to get big on him. And we were probably higher on him than anybody. And then last year, everybody else was way too high on him. So we were pretty much out. And now I think this is going to be there. He's fairly valued. So, got to pay attention to him once again in fantasy. We haven't talked running back yet. Look, there's been a little bit of movement, not anything like last year, but one big move that we already discussed was Najee Harris going from Pittsburgh to the Chargers. Oh, look, that's good for him, but guess what? It seems like it's definitely good for Jaylen Warren. You think so?
Yeah, I think this is great for Jaylen Warren. They put a second round tender on him, so no one, that shows you that A, that they value him, and B, it pretty much means no team is going to try to sign, Jaylen Warren and give up a second round pick. But also, they only brought in Kenneth Gainwell. Like, okay, yeah, Kenneth Gainwell, sure, fine. He's depth, but he's just depth. Now, they may still do something in the NFL draft, of course, and this is a good running back class. It is a deep running back class. But it doesn't mean if they draft a rookie running back that guy's just going to come in day one and instantly, take a ton of touches. We see rookie running backs often need time. They often ramp up slowly these days. So I think this is really good for Jaylen Warren. I think we could see Jaylen Warren as a starting running back going into week 1.
And it is pretty likely the Steelers will draft a running back somewhere. I highly doubt it's early or one of the top running backs. They've got more pressing needs. So, some third, fourth round running back is really going to threaten Jaylen Warren immediately? I doubt it. It could happen, but as it stands right now, this has got to be a big win for him. And sometimes the biggest winners are the quarterbacks who get to sit back and watch their offense improve while they don't have to do anything themselves. Well, let's start with Matt Stafford. I mean, he won just by getting a new contract. He's still with the Rams, and now his situation seems to have improved.
Yeah, not only did he get a nice new contract to stay in LA, but he also got a nice new wide receiver with Davante Adams. So, yeah, Stafford continues to be, I keep talking about it every time we do one of these underdog drafts. I'm like, how is Matthew Stafford this low in fantasy? Currently going as like QB 27 or something. Like, really, there's 26 better QBs than Matthew Stafford in fantasy. He's got Sean McVay. He's got Davante Adams now. He's got Puka. Matthew Stafford is an absolute steal in fantasy drafts right now.
Undervalued. And a lot of people will think losing Cooper Kupp is not good for him. Look at the numbers. I bet when we break down all the reception perception data, you're going to see Cooper Kupp is being let go for a reason. Davante Adams, not so much. Some people kind of wrote him off prematurely. He is still a stud receiver. So Matt Stafford is in a pretty good position this year to contribute. And then that Tampa Bay offense is going to look pretty much the same as last year, which is really good for Baker Mayfield.
Yep, they brought Chris Godwin back. Mike Evans there. They've got Jalen McMillan still. I mean, this might be even better for Baker Mayfield this year because remember last year it was pretty much just Evans and Godwin, and then it wasn't until Godwin got hurt that gave McMillan a chance to kind of, ramp up and show what he could do. Now he's going into this season with all three of these guys. I realize Godwin may not be 100% to start the season, but once he's ready and he's back and he's ramped up, I mean, this offense could be extremely explosive. And look, Baker Mayfield was great. He's been great in fantasy really the last 2 years. This might be his best year, honestly.
Exactly. That offense is for real. Now, if there's one issue that might change things a little bit, it's the fact that offense coordinator Liam Cohen is gone, right? Because he's now in Jacksonville and Duval. But I really don't think it's going to make that big a difference because you got a veteran group there, like you mentioned, an explosive running game now with Bucky Irving. So Baker Mayfield is looking pretty good on draft day as your QB1, which is still weird for me to say, but there it is. And in this one, I know some people will still be skeptical, but Caleb Williams, is he really a winner?
He's got to be. I mean, you got to give credit to Ben Johnson and Ryan Poles. They realized the offensive line was a huge weakness last year, and they went out and addressed it. They signed one of the best left tackles, Joe Thuney from the Chiefs. They signed probably the best center free agent there was out there. I mean, they really bolstered this offensive line, and they're probably going to even bolster it more in the NFL draft. So he's got Ben Johnson now as his head coach. That's already a huge win. A front line that can actually block for him and give him time. And he still has DJ Moore and Rome Odunze. So I think Caleb Williams is going to have a big-time year 2 bounce back and be much, much better than we saw in year 1.
And let's be real. Just going from that Mess of a coaching staff that he had last year to Ben Johnson is already a win. And then getting three, not one, not two, but three big time offensive linemen to protect him for a guy who took way too many sacks. That's huge. And then we still don't even know what they're going to do for the draft. I feel like they're going to add some help at running back somehow at some point. But still, this is definitely a big help for Caleb Williams. Sometimes we do need just a little bit of patience, maybe give a guy more than just one season before we judge him. Now that we broke down the winners, players who didn't have to do a lot this offseason to see their fancy stock improve, how about the guys who did sign new contracts and you may didn't hear about it because they are going under the radar? We talked about them here.